There's one problem with the email-based review. Although it's very easy to set up, all you need is an email client to use this tool, it's sort of a parallel process, meaning that you might have 3 or 4 different reviewers telling you the same thing. If you could somehow get them onto the same page so that they could see each other's work, then it will streamline things because 10 different people needn't tell you the same thing over and over again. For that reason, Adobe has built into Acrobat something called the shared review. So to use that, I'm going to close up this tool, close up my panels, and I'm actually going to open a different document. And I'll choose File Open. In the Project Files folder, in the Part 1 folder, you'll find the Lesson 11 folder. Open that, and we worked on Complete Proposal Send. Now we're going to focus on Complete Proposal to Share. So we'll get started by opening Complete Proposal to Share, and I'll double-click on it. And then we'll initiate the review process. I'll select from the Review and Comment Task button, Send for Shared Review. Acrobat, much like it did with the email-based review, is going to walk me through a process. The process starts with the ability to enable reviewers with the Adobe Reader to participate. This is the same capability I had with an email-based review, so again, you can invite Reader users to participate. However, this is going to require Acrobat 8 or Reader 8. This is not going to work with a Reader 7 user, and that's important to understand as you're creating a file for this process. You might as well, with the Reduce File Size option, set the compatibility to Acrobat 8. You'll get the smallest file possible, and since Acrobat 7 or Reader 7 users can't participate anyway, why not take advantage of it? But to continue, we need to choose a shared location to store the comments. Now, we can either choose it from our list here if we've set them up, which I've done already, or we can add a new location. And I want to click on this button and talk a little bit about these locations. This is going to require some help from IT, or somebody who understands networking, because you have 3 choices. You can use a networked folder, a SharePoint workspace, or a WebDAV folder. I'm going to choose a WebDAV folder because I want this review to work with people outside of my organization. If it's completely internal, then I can use a networked folder, or if I'm using Microsoft SharePoint, I can use the SharePoint workspace option as well. In any of the 3 cases, I'm going to need to configure Acrobat to tell it where that location is. So I'll select WebDAV, and I need to rename it so that it doesn't conflict with the name that I have already used. I'll name this one Tim Plummer, and click on Next. This is where I'll enter the URL. Now, I'm not going to go ahead and do this, but this is where you would have your IT department help you by giving you the URL that you would enter into this text field. And then once you've entered a URL, you can actually ask Acrobat to verify that it's available. If you don't do that, then you might end up sending people to a dead location, and that would cause the whole process to break. In fact, actually, Acrobat just won't let you. If you type in an invalid URL and click on Add Folder, Acrobat's not even going to allow you to do it. I'm going to hit Cancel because we're not going to set one up. I have one set up that we can use, and it's good to go. The final thing to consider is the name of the document. I have a document open. I'm going to use it. I could choose another document from my system, but I don't need to. I'll click Next. And this is where I'll decide how to send the PDF file, as it says. I can automatically send an email invitation, or I can just save the file locally and send it out using my own methodology. If I do choose to send an email invitation, which I'm going to do, I can attach the entire PDF file or send a link to the PDF in the message. If I do that, then the PDF has to be in a place that's accessible, like a URL or a common network folder or something like that. I'm going to send it as an email. Because I'm going to enable this for this particular review process, Acrobat is going to actually ask me to save a copy of this. It's not going to overwrite the original copy. Now, even though I've reduced it for file size and massaged it that way, there is going to be special sauce, if you will, built into this file to make it usable in this process. Acrobat's also going to want to know where that file is when I get my comments back. And so I'm going to have one more step here, and that's going to be to save the file in a particular location. I can either browse to a new location, in which case I'll just go ahead and browse to the desktop so that I can save it there. Notice that it added the word review to the file name, Complete Proposal to Share, which was the original file name, _review. Acrobat's added that, and I'm going to let it. In fact, I need to let it. All I need to do now is click Next, invite the required reviewers. In this case, I'll invite the Guest 2 reviewer by entering their email address. I'm not restricted to a single reviewer. I can invite as many reviewers as I like, and if I want to invite more, I'll click the semicolon and then add the other names. And again, as with an email-based review, I can click my address book and choose names from my address book. I'm not going to do that here. I can also have optional reviewers. Now, the required reviewers are people that I require them to send information back, and I'm not going to close out the process until I've gotten information back from them. Optional reviewers are just people that I might like feedback from, and if I don't get it, I'm not going to worry about it. And third, I can set a deadline for this process as well. And by setting a deadline, all I'm doing is automatically building a deadline into the process, both with respect to what I'm going to do to manage the process and the information that the reviewers get when they're invited to review in the process. I'm not going to bother with a deadline here, so I'm just going to click Next. Here again, as with an email-based review, I can edit the message that I send out. I'm not going to bother with that this time. I'll simply select Finish. Acrobat's creating the shared review, it's saving the document, it's creating the outgoing message, and it's telling me that I have an outgoing email message in my email client, and I may need to do a send and receive in order to actually send it. Now, I'm going to click OK, and before I go over and actually send the email, I want to point out that Acrobat is providing me some information up here about the process. For example, I'll send the document out. I might leave this file open, go to lunch, and come back. By then, people may have actually gone through the process of adding their comments to the document. Acrobat isn't going to force them into the document. I need to ask Acrobat if there are new comments by clicking on Check for New Comments. I'm not going to do that here because I know that there haven't been any made. What I am going to do, though, is step out of my role as the initiator into the shoes of the person who receives this email so that you can see how that process works, and then we'll come back here and load those comments into the document so that we can finish it off. And since Outlook is set up to automatically send and receive, I know that email is away and it's on its way to the reviewer.